Okay, good. Then thanks you all for joining our first online SheSays event this year. So for those who don't know SheSays, this is what SheSays is standing for, the most authentic voice in the gender equality movement. But talking about we, who are we? So SheSays is a global organization and it has been founded in 2007 in the US. Meanwhile, it has grew to a global network and now is present in 55 cities and has more than 70,000 members around the globe, so quite a big community already. Here in Munich, we are a core team of 8 women. Our latest member is not yet on the picture, but it's Enar. She's also today joining us. And we are organizing 3 events on a monthly basis for women and men, of course, in Munich since 2018. And that's what we are here for today as well. So as you can see, we also do some workshops, some events. So this is how it used to look like before Corona. Now we're doing it online, of course, but as soon as everything is getting better, we are going to have this kind of session again, which was really nice as well. How you can support us. So we are on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So don't hesitate to tag us if you are posting something. You can also spread the word with the hashtag SheSays Munich. And most important, of course, you can approach us anytime if you want to become a speaker, or if you want to sponsor or host one of our events in the time, of course, where we are doing a real live event, not only online. And we are always happy to discuss any possibilities you have in mind. And of course, continue what you are doing anyway, meaning join our next event. A small word about SheCreates. This is an initiative that we relaunched. So if you are a creative in Munich and you want to promote yourself, send us a message and we will promote you on Instagram. But now let's talk about our evening event. So about imposter syndrome and beyond. Stop feeling like a fraud and start striving. With our speaker, Pia Klanka. Welcome, Pia. So she is a coach and senior product designer. She has a passion to help career changer and professional build a career. So Pia, stage is yours.
Thank you, Laura, for this beautiful introduction, and welcome everyone to this session. Because we said it's going to be interactive, I would really love everyone to turn on the camera so that we can actually have a conversation. But if you're shy or you feel like this session is too personal, then don't feel like you have to. So just a heads up, there is going to be a couple of breakout sessions where you will have an opportunity to talk. Mostly, so I chose the breakout sessions mostly because we're recording this session, and I want to make sure that if you have something to share in relation to imposter syndrome, sometimes these topics can be sensitive. So because in the breakout rooms we're not recording, that's what actually supports us there. So everyone ready to start? Let me see who's with us. Thank you for the thumbs up. Good. So let me start sharing my screen. Here we go. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can move this up. So because everything went wrong that could go wrong, I'm gonna be all over with my eyes, so I'm sorry for that up front because I'm looking at 2 computers at the same time to see you and to see the chat, but just to give you a heads up. All good. So stop feeling like a fraud and start really thriving. This is the topic for today. The imposter syndrome is something that became sort of a buzzword, but it's such a buzzword that we really need to make it even louder. The secrecy around it and about it is too great, and it costs us too much. So let's talk about this today, and let's start talking about also outside. So a little bit about the history, just really very quickly. The term comes from many years ago, so from 1978. It was coined by the two psychologists, Dr. Clanson and Dr. Imus. They worked together with 150 high-achieving women that had all the proof in the world that they're successful. And yet, they didn't perceive themselves as such. What they saw themselves as were, oh, you know, my success is just a result of luck. It's simply, you know, or someone is simply overestimating where I am. From there on, this changed a little bit. So they started working with high achieving women. They hypothesized that this only affects women. That has changed a little bit. So the newer research actually says that men are just as affected as women, but the secrecy there is even bigger. So because I said in the beginning, so this is, first of all, I want to make it interactive. Then second of all, I want to first understand a little bit how much you know about this topic and what you expect out of it. I'll first explain what the topic is a little bit about, but then I would love if you could put in the meantime in chat a little bit about your expectations. What do you want to see from the session? So while I'm talking about what the imposter syndrome is, so it is this persistent feeling that the success that we have is the product of luck, or that we're not really as competent as other people think we are. It is estimated that about 70% of people have it, that it pops up here and there. It's not a persistence, so we don't really, it's not a syndrome, so it's more a phenomenon, but it's very popular. It's very popular. It's very, what is the English word that I'm looking for? Now I lost the English word. Doesn't matter. So a lot of people have it. Like so I would love to hear from you. Yeah, go ahead.
Could we comment?
Yeah. So I would love to hear from you a little bit of how much you know about the imposter syndrome. So now we know very quickly about what it is, but just how much you know already, so that I know how deep to go and what you expect from the session. And you can start talking, you can raise your hand, or you can put it in chat, whatever feels better. And the SheSays ladies, you can also participate.
So for me, I don't know so much about the imposter syndrome. That's I was also very interested to hear today your session. But of course, just by reading the description already that you have written, to me it sounds like something we can have different degree, of course, but that maybe everybody has a little bit somehow. I mean, especially women. There are a lot of women who are not always very self-confident about themselves, about what they know. So I don't know if that's related exactly to the imposter syndrome. I think there are different degrees in that matter, but yeah. We had a lot of SheSays events until now, and the question of self-confidence also when you are a woman was raised several times. So that's why I think, yeah, it could be very interesting to get to know more about it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else that would want to share, or just maybe a wish for the session? What are you expecting out of it?
I mean, oh,
sorry, you go first.
Okay, for me, it's really just, it's a very recent situation for me that I get offered different positions that are in leading positions. And I have this imposter syndrome that it keeps me from taking the jobs that are amazing, just because I'm too scared that I could fail or disappoint them for any reason. Because I kind of know that it's not true, but I cannot act on it. And I kind of hope from this SheSays class that there are tips and tricks that we can mentally overcome this, basically.
Okay, so tips and tricks.
yeah, just little, like, I don't know, keep a pro list on your achievements. That's the only one I know, that you have like a list of achievements that you can make all over the year. And once there's like a situation popping up that you're unsure about, you just reread your accomplishments and something like this. Yeah.
Good, perfect. Thank you very much. Danny, I think you tried speaking before as well.
Yes, and it was actually quite similar. So I was also interested to hear like how to handle it if you have it yourself, but also maybe the other way around. If you face someone who has this imposter phenomenon, how can you also act vice versa to support others with it? So it's actually quite similar to what Heike said before.
Perfect. Good. So
I think someone also wrote in the chat as well. So this is Kata. I have read a lot about imposter syndrome after the book Lean In. So I don't know, Pia, if you know that book. One of the key benefits of this session is to already know that others are affected as well. During the session, I like to learn about tactics and how to combat it and let the attitude of being my own worst critic go.
perfect. So a lot of the same, basically, tips and tricks how to get from there. Good. Any other wishes that do not involve maybe tips and tricks? No. Good. Then I will go forward. So because I know that quite some of you are coming already knowing about the imposter syndrome, I will very quickly go through the next slide. So this is a, here we have a couple of statements that can indicate potentially that we have it or not. It is not clinical, it's not approved at all, but it indicates some of the potentials that something could be going on. So I'll quickly go through all of these. And for all of you that are new to this, to the topic, maybe take a pen and paper, put down the numbers. So we have 3 numbers. We have 1, 2, and 3. Where 1, so if I read a statement and you feel, this is kind of, no, this is rare for me, put a 1 there. If it happens sometimes, put a 2, and if it's often, put a 3, and then we'll sum all of these and see where we fall. Ready? Everyone has a pen and paper? Or you can also do it on a computer now in such a digital age. So, okay, so statement 1. You feel your achievements are mainly down to good luck or other external factors. So 1, 2, or 3. Very quickly, don't even think about it. You feel you gave others the impression that you're more capable than you really are. Sometimes, rarely, often. You feel that anyone could achieve what you have achieved. You feel that someone made an error if they evaluated you highly, even if it's a test, so even if it's a standardized test. You feel absolutely terrible when you make a mistake. And I don't mean just, when we say, oh, I'm sorry, I feel terrible about it. No, you obsess about it. You go and you're thinking the world will explode because I made this error. You feel anxious and you freeze when someone important comes to you and says, we need to talk. So for example, your boss comes to your table and he or they are like, we need to talk. And then you're like, ugh. Okay. And then the last one, you feel that every new achievement increases the pressure to achieve even more next time. So it's always constantly overachieving and overachieving. So sum all of these together, get one number out of these, and then share in chat. And let me know if you need more time. So what did you get? And we're not going to read the names, so we don't have to worry. It's just so that we see where we are. Mhm. So I see 15s, I see 14s, 16. Okay, so now for everyone, if you got it from 1 to 7, then it's great. Then there is a high chance that none of this applies to you. So you can just enjoy back. You can enjoy just listening about this and helping others. Because for you, it's not going to be super valuable. If you got between 8 and 14, this is actually where most people fall into this range. So it might be that sometimes you have these thoughts, but it's not really debilitating. So it's not stopping you from something big. There is a high chance that if an opportunity comes knocking your doors, you will take it, right? If you're 15 and above, then it might be a problem. It might be a bigger problem to a point, like Heike said before, you might not want to take an opportunity because you feel like a fraud. It might be such a huge stressor that you feel anxious, that you feel isolated, that you don't want to deal with situations. Right? How is this now looking at the number in front of you? Anyone willing to share? Does it make sense?
I can share. Sure. I mean, I have a pretty high number, and I've always known that I have a pretty bad case of imposter syndrome. I've encountered situations where I thoroughly doubted myself, whether I should go for it or not. And then at the end of the day, it comes down to how to overcome that situation and say, okay, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, I stop myself from doing things, but then, yeah, it comes down to the situation sometimes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Depends how much on yeah, wie viel es ein Spiel, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
I also just experienced that the 0.5 absolutely terrible when you make a mistake. With others, I'm so easy. If they make mistakes, I'm like, yeah, don't worry, we can solve this, we can work it out. And if it's me doing mistakes, I'm like completely the opposite. Like I'm punishing myself quite a lot for making mistakes, which is, yeah, a bit weird that you measure with two different scales, or like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just different if it affects me or others. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it does make a lot of sense, and I'll explain in a couple of minutes why. But it is it's actually very common. I'm in the same group as you are. Good. So one thing that is also helpful, and we already heard a couple of very good techniques on what to do in this situation. But one of the things that I believe is important is knowledge. So that's why we're talking about these things. And it's not just this general feeling of being an imposter, but if we go a little bit deeper, what we actually find out is that there are 5 subtypes. So this was defined by Dr. Young, and she has categorized these. So the perfectionist, the superwoman and the superman, the natural genius, the soloist, and the expert. So let's quickly go through these so that you can then come back to that and see where you fit a little bit. And once you know where you fit, you can also sort of predict what's going to happen in situations and how to overcome this. So have the pen and paper ready, and let's go through these. So we have the perfectionist. So this is the most common of all of the types, right? Probably because to a degree, perfectionism is a value of many, especially in career, right? If you do something well, you're actually praised for it. But this perfectionist is taking it to the next level. Their primary focus is on how something is done and what is the outcome. So everything needs to be 100%. If it's 99, it's probably not going to be good enough. There is rarely a chance for a perfectionist to really enjoy and step back and celebrate their achievements. It's always going to be, high five, I've done great. What's my next thing? Where can I grow? Right? Is this growth mentality taken to the next level? These people also set impossibly high standards for themselves, and they beat themselves up if they cannot reach them. And they're impossible to reach, really. They love control. They might have feedback that they're micromanaging. They're really extra hard on themselves whenever a mistake happens. And like I said before, they need to be 100% in everything. So the next one is a superwoman, superman. It's just a dog, just because not to fit into any of these. But basically, this group, the primary focus is how many things can I achieve simultaneously? So these are the hardest working people in the office. They will work on weekends. They will stay after work. They will reschedule their friends just to finish their work. They will have a hard time going for vacation. They will continuously have this need to prove themselves even once they have gotten a promotion and a title. So one of the things that we sometimes feel like the imposter syndrome is the incompetence, and this is not it. So these people are all highly competent, and with the superwoman and superman, it shows the most because they continuously prove themselves, and they work harder than anyone else just to feel that they're working the same amount, that they're putting the same amount of effort in it. So the next one is the natural genius. So for these people, it's all about the effort. It's how quickly can I get something done. So these are usually the people that have been labeled the smart ones in the family. They are the ones that got straight A's in school, for example. They really dislike being told what to do and how to do it because they know it, but they still feel like they're a fraud. And their confidence will plummet if they have the smallest setback. And they will avoid challenges if they can, because it's gonna require effort. Right? So the next one is the soloist. They are the ones that are thinking about who is going to achieve the task. So it's like, if I'm doing something alone and I have results, then I can be proud of the results. But if we're doing them as a group, I didn't really do much, even though you participate. The soloists are the most independent. They work alone. They would rather focus on, I wrote here, requirements than wishes or needs. So they would never say, I need something. And if someone comes and tells them how to do something, they will again feel like fraud, because asking for help for them is impossible, or it's hard. Let's call it hard. The last one, the expert. This one was very strong when I was preparing this webinar this week for me. These people are certification or degree collector. They would go to a lot of, they would take second degree maybe. They would go to this course, to another course. For them, it's all about what they know. So it's about the knowledge and how much they know. And it's never enough. It's always, if you give them a scale from 1 to 5 and say, where do you fit by the level of knowledge? Even if they have 20 years of experience, they will say 4 or they will say 3. I know as much as everyone else. They will also avoid opportunities if they feel they're not 100% a match. And this is actually something that I see when working with career changers a lot. Because when they're looking at job ads, they're like, I don't fit. Something is missing. It's one or the other. Even if others are considering them on an expert level, they're not considering themselves. They're just like everyone else, basically. And they would very seldom ask for help. They would actually rather research and find their own help. So these are the 5, and this was probably the most that I will be talking in one chunk, but I wanted to give you this in one chunk. If you have any notes, and I hope that you have notes, I would now like to move us to the breakout rooms. So how many people do we have?
We have together 14.
14. So can we then put people by 3 and then 1 is 2, right?
One moment.
My math right. And then you have 6 minutes in the breakout rooms where you can talk about what came up while you were listening to what I was saying and connect that with the test that we did before. And then we'll have a short sharing session. Any questions? No, all clear? I always say thumbs up. Thumbs up. Good, then Beate, please take us.
I'm opening now 4 rooms,
Mhm.
breakout rooms. See you soon.
Was a bit more than 6 minutes because Beate and I also were talking, so I hope it wasn't too long. How was it for everyone? This did you manage to talk, everyone?
Yeah.
Good. So welcome back, like I said. So if anyone feels brave enough to share, or maybe that's actually a bad expression, but if anyone wishes to share, maybe what came up when you were sharing with the group, what was surprising, what you've learned, something that would be beneficial for all of us.
To me, it was surprising that we all kind of agreed that we see ourselves in every group. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not just one that we point to, but it's like, oh, there's at least 1 or 2 points in every group that I belong to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's never, it's like with any personality test or any behavior test, basically, it's never one that you perfectly fit. It would always be a spectrum. So yeah, great learning. Thank you. Anything else that came up for you that you would like to share with us?
To me, actually, it was a very empowering experience to meet women who are clearly intelligent, emotionally mature, competent, and we all have some of those personality traits which you mentioned related to types who have imposter syndrome and how we cope with that. We also discussed the point of making mistakes a bit, because it resonated to all 3 of us, how easy we can take it when somebody else makes a mistake, and we think it's natural, it's the part of the learning process. But then the 3 of us agree that we all have sleepless nights if we make any type of mistake, and we would remember it basically forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Kata, for the share. Mm. We also had an interesting chat in between with Beate. Maybe, do you want to share anything from there?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just mentioned because many things how we're acting is about beliefs, and beliefs are connected to where you're coming from or how you're growing up. So I'm Polish German, so I grew up in Poland, and a lot of the connection is regarding to the church. So how you're growing up, or in man-driven environment. So it's everything is connected, and so your beliefs are set up very early at a very early stage, and then you're acting to it. So it's to break out. It takes some time, and to be yourself and make your own way.
Thank you for that. And I will use that as a bridge to the next section, basically. And we're moving into the section which was highly requested in the beginning, so tips and tricks. I call these actually strategies for survival since forever. I don't know where I got that, but for me, imposter syndrome is something that has a source, and I'll talk about the source, but it very much happens in now. So knowing how to react in the now is very important, and sometimes it feels so overwhelming that you just need to survive that particular situation and then go forward. And I wrote here that there is no real perfect solution for the imposter syndrome, but that's sort of true. I'll explain that in a second, actually. So what is the source? Before we go into the strategies, we need to understand the source, because again, knowledge is power. And once we know this, one of the strengths of people feeling like imposters is that they're very good at controlling the situations. So also having the knowledge, you can to a point control this. Where this all comes from, right? Why are we feeling this way? What Beate said, it's very, very important, and she talked about beliefs. It is actually hypothesized that the imposter syndrome comes from something that is called belief in conditional worth. So this means literally that our worth depends upon what we do or don't do. Right? And conditional worth was researched by Dr. Rogers in 1950, so quite some time ago. And he looked into something called congruence. This is a big word, but what it basically means is how close is a person to something that they hold as an ideal and to something that they experience or something that they feel they are. Right? And conditional worth is the lack of this. By the way, Beate, I just want to say that someone is waiting as well. Because I saw it pop. So when we think that our worth is conditional, then we need to constantly prove that we are worthy. Right? And we do that by constantly doing what is right and constantly doing 100% or more. Right? This stems from, like we heard from Beate also before, it's the belief that we've been taught before. It is a belief that was taught to us by parents, by teachers, by peers, and the culture itself. And this is not to point fingers, right? Our parents did the best they could. They did the best they knew how. And yet, it stems from there. So knowing where it comes from, very powerful. If you look at this little baby, right? And if someone would ask, is this little person, does this baby have worth? Does it have value as a person? Everyone will probably say yes. And they didn't need to do anything for that. They didn't need to prove themselves. These babies just are. And so what happened between that little part, that little baby that is the innocent little soul that just exists and has worth because they exist, to us adults that prove ourselves constantly, that have the proof that we're successful, and yet we feel like we're frauds, that we're not who everyone else thinks that we are, right? And this literally came from this little baby having the need to survive. So this little baby needed their parents to love them, to take care of them, to hold them, to give food, right? And very quickly we'll learn as babies that if we smile, we get a smile back. So it's a behavior and we get a reaction, right? If we cry, it's going to be a different reaction, right? If we do something naughty, right? You hold that hot plate on your stove it's going to be a different reaction. So we very quickly understand that our behavior is connected to who we are, right? So conditional worth, right? And the easy thing, do you remember when I said before where there is an easy thing? It's not an easy thing, it's a magical thing in a way. It is unconditional worth. But to be honest, this is not easy. Nothing of that is easy, and it takes months and months and months of work with a coach or with a therapist to actually go deep enough to work on your unconditional worth. And then, so this was your past, and then we come to the present, right? We have this conditional worth that is somewhere in us, really down, somewhere hidden from us. But then when something happens, it's triggered and it comes up, right? And there are two triggers and a couple of intensifiers. So either a change or a challenge, or sometimes a challenging change, and toxic environment. Especially the last one was the one that I heard of so many times when I was talking with women. It made me so sad. It's like, especially when we're talking about careers in tech, this is when I was talking with women, the one that kept popping up. Okay. And then the intensifiers, so the things that intensify the trigger, are the secrecy, the isolation, and the lack of support. And then I added another layer to it. So just knowing somewhere behind here that there are certain professions where this is higher, or there is a higher risk, there are triggers on their own. And those are the professions that have the critique as something normal. So they require critique to a point. So anything to do with like artists, writers, Maya Angelou, like she spoke about how many books she wrote, and yet every single time she was waiting to be discovered, right? Designers. There we are. Okay. So now comes the fun part. So what can we actually do? These strategies that I put here are actually my own strategies. And I would love to hear from you, because I believe that these strategies are very personal. They are the strategies to survive that each of us create for ourselves, and they depend on the situation and the triggers, right? So I'm just gonna give a couple. So first of all, stop, breathe, and be gentle. And this is so important, because first of all, when we're stressed, we don't breathe, right? When we're in a situation where we don't feel good, like we are tense and we don't breathe. So just stop and look from afar. Observe and try to see the signs. What is it that triggers you? Because it's usually always the same thing that triggers you, even if it shows up as a different thing, right? So if I look at my own career, I changed career a couple of times. And one of the reasons for that was also this, because it was easier to quit, even though I've spent years building that particular career, but it was easier to quit than than someone point at me and say, she's a fraud. I wasn't. I knew my craft. I knew what I'm doing, but still it was easier at that point. Understand where you place your worth. So what I mean by that is, think of that baby, right? All babies are worthy. They are because who they are. Once we take this worth out of us and place it somewhere else, that is where our trigger lies. So what you can do in cases like that, so once you see the trigger and once you understand where you're placing your worth, it's easy to reframe. Instead of saying I'm a fraud, what I say now to myself is, oh, I care a lot for this. This really means a lot to me, right? So separate facts from feelings and assumptions. What is true? Is it really true? Is it really that way? Document. So we heard that before. Document positive feedback. That is super helpful. If nothing else, you know, when you're feeling down, you can always come back. You can read. You can have, I don't know, coffee, warm tea, whatever. But you can slow down and read through these things. Then identify the true moments where caring and doing your best actually matters the most. Because these little mistakes that we make, right? Someone said before, like, what is going to happen? Is it really that important that I'm feeling this way? What place does it hold in me? Is it going to matter in a year or 5 years? Probably not. For a lot of these things, not. Super important. Speak out. This is the one thing that I have heard from all of the women that I talked to for the preparation of this webinar, and everyone that I have coached. They got so much relief by talking. You don't have to go to your HR or to your boss, right? Find someone, start somewhere with someone that you trust and expand. Because like, there is a lot of us, right? There was no one that got 1 to 7 in this group, for example. Then get unbiased support system. So get a coach or a therapist. This is actually something that I got from one of my coaches, and she told me, you know what, it's so much different if I talk with someone that doesn't have an agenda, someone that does not have a stake in what I do, in what I feel, in what I think, right? And then sometimes, and that's the last one, leave toxic situation, right? Sometimes it's just toxic. Sometimes it's not you. Sometimes you just need to step out, right? And a lot of the times, you know, this perfectionist in us will want to stay a little bit longer because you want to prove to yourself that you can actually do it. You can beat the system. You can beat the toxic situation. But you can't. And it's becoming so toxic that it's not worth it. Good. So these are my 9. And I would love now to hear from you and then go into questions and answers. So what other practical strategies do you have that you are using? And you can post it in chat or you can post it in, and let me actually see you. I can stop sharing now.
So I'll just start in. It is connected to one of the points that you mentioned earlier, like right now. Whenever I realize that I'm struggling with a situation or I'm being too hard on myself, it's just to assess what, as you said, it's a mix of everything, kind of like analyze what it is that's causing that situation, and then take a step back and decide how much does it matter to me to get the results I'm hoping for, or just assess what my expectations are, because sometimes it might be connected to high expectations set on yourself. So it's like, why am I expecting so much of myself, etc. So kind of like just take a step back, kind of like look at it from an outside perspective, and would I treat someone else the way I'm treating myself, and then decide based on that. If someone else were in that situation, how would I treat them? And that sometimes
I love
helps.
that one. That is a powerful one. And I wonder, this is my assumption, so I'm putting it there, that not many times you would treat others as you do yourself.
No, probably not. We're usually a lot harder on ourselves than we are on other people, unless you have a lot of confidence with that person, because as we say in Spain, confidence sucks sometimes. You put a lot more pressure on people that you're close with than on other people that you don't know as much. That sometimes helps, sometimes doesn't, but it's worth a try.
Perfect, thank you. I love it also that you said it's worth a try. It's like none of these are are really tailored to you, right? So one thing that I always suggest is that you look at your own environment, your own situations, and then you go from these, and then basically pick and try and see, okay, what works for me, what doesn't work for you. And this is where working with a coach, for example, is incredibly powerful, because you have the space where you can explore what worked for you specifically, and it might be something completely different from what I put there. Like you said, yeah, I might ask myself this question, and then I'm like, maybe I should start doing that as well. So good. Anyone else? We would love to hear how you're dealing with it yourself, because I'm pretty sure that we're all also experts in dealing with these things.
Maybe two short things. You noted one down as well, like write down compliments or achievements or something, but also like celebrate yourself, like soak in all the success, because I experience it myself. If someone gives me like a compliment, oh, the presentation was really great, I'm like, yeah, thanks, okay, next one. And like I'm starting to do, or just, yeah, keep on going, doing my work, but really like celebrating yourself and taking the time to like soak in success. And yeah, the second one is a bit like I would always follow role models, like in my like colleagues. I always saw people that were like really strict on like leaving the company at 6, or like just giving 100% and not more, or like being too proactive and delivering 120%, or yeah, really following those role models, and just also talk to them. Yeah, see them as a peer and ask how they're doing it when it comes to like time management. Because me personally, I'm like, if I'm not feeling confident, I'm like over performing, over delivering. If like I don't like my text that I'm delivering like 10 sentences more just to show I'm there. I'm like, I can do stuff even though I'm not super confident with what I'm delivering. So yeah, follow role models and talk to peers, as you said as well.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think the second point that you brought up is, I think it's very accentuated lately, or since we work from home, that people feel like they need to be more present, and then they work more than they would in a normal situation, because otherwise they feel like they're not being seen. So that kind of also affects. And I want to add up to the first point as well, not just celebrate, but share the successes. So don't just keep it to yourself and move on, but just share it with the people you care about, because those are the ones that are gonna push you up and be your cheerleaders at the end of the day, on top of yourself.
Exactly. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Also, one thing maybe on the home office, one thing that I've noticed when I was talking to women, and also then I started researching a little bit, apparently home office helps with reducing the emotional load that is connected with the imposter syndrome. And I was thinking a lot about it. So I have a hypothesis that it's just because we are taken out of these situations, and that basically what you don't see is everyone around you, and we tend to compare with others, and in home office you're more focused on yourself. So it might actually serve if you're on your own in an environment where you feel good. But at the same time, I think you need to be mindful that you don't isolate yourself and that you don't get into secrecy. How has it been for everyone being in a home office or working remote?
Terrible.
Yeah, terrible. What made it terrible?
I like people. I need contacts. It's just crazy. You're so isolated. I cannot see the room anymore. It's like, because you're by yourself all the time, and you have a lot of meeting after with people. You're picking up your coffee from your kitchen, and you're disconnected. You know, you you cannot meet any random people. It's just with your colleagues or really the people that you're working with, like directly, but nobody else. So there's no knowledge exchange, no information exchange, nothing. And you're sitting and you're working more than, that's my opinion.
More than you should, yeah. More than you're, okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I always work from home, but I've found that working from home through COVID, people are having more and more meetings. They're busier than ever. And I question, are we busy with the right things? But you can become, isolated. And it's important to talk to people. So I try and make sort of coffee break meetings. We used to use something called Skype for Teams. I think we're moving to Microsoft Teams very soon. So I'm very conscious of using that, and that's a sort of a mechanism for me. And something else I just wanted to mention that I've heard recently, and I think from being from the imposter syndrome, from celebrating yourself personally, I would have a coach to help me through it and talk to other people as well. And I wish I'd done that much sooner in my career. And now I want to do it for other people, for the younger leaders coming up in our organization. But I heard, there's a high leader in our organization in the US. And on the other hand, I'd heard that she was not open to, she'd been there, done that, done it all. And actually, when I had a call with her to make sure that people that were working with me were going to be okay, and maybe I needed to lead some of the meetings that were coming up, I found her fabulous to talk to. She really was comfortable in her skin. And that's the sort of role model I would want. But at the same time, we need to educate society to this as well, because it isn't how nice girls are seen. And that is a real shame for us. And we need to be conscious of this. Don't let it hold you back, for goodness sake. Find your passion, find a mentor and a coach, somebody to help you through. And we all have struggles, and we're in similar situations. So find someone you can talk to in those low times and give yourself just some space for it. Don't put yourself in the limelight if you're feeling low, and then find I love your tips for making sure you do lift yourself. So I was amazed that this lady was thought of in a negative light when I actually spoke to her. I was like in awe, and I loved her. And she did say to me, we can always learn, because I was saying we can learn from each other, and she was absolutely open for it. It just depended how you were listening to her as well. So language is really important as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you, Mel, for sharing this. It's very true. Language in both ways, and a lot of the times. So when I'm talking about the toxic environment, that's one of the part that I have in mind, is that sometimes people will make comments, or they will ignore you, or they will put you down, or whatever. It might be very small thing, but it might be big enough thing for you, and for you to press that red button, your trigger, and then everything blows up, right? So being conscious of that, very, very important. Thank you, Mel. Do we have any comments in the chat as well? Beate, you're muted.
I'm on mute, sorry for that. Also people say that it's inspiring, also it's not inspiring to work from home. The group dynamic is missing, working from home. And yeah, when you started, it was good when we started, but then now it's depressing, because it's just getting too long. And looking for a mentor can be very scary. So it's true, also to find the right person too.
What makes it scary to find a mentor?
I think that that's probably the imposter syndrome speaking. It's like, what if we're not a good match? What if I can't learn anything, in the sense like I'm not good enough to learn something from them, or just putting yourself out there and trying to find someone. I guess fear of rejection can be part of it as well. Yeah.
And what is
there's one more, escaping technology. Things are changing so often. There's always something to catch up. So despite the list of things that she's good at, and she reminds herself not to that she's not bad. But that's true. Technology is changing every 6 months. So, oh yeah, that's not. Somebody had technical issues. That's something different.
I guess
so we're not adding this one.
Yeah, hopefully those are solved. So now, if there are any other questions or anything, I would open that. Before I do, I would really love to thank everyone for the participation, for making this a conversation. I love having conversation, especially about the topics that are close to my heart. For Hannah and for everyone else. So I would love to explore with you a little bit about what makes finding a mentor hard, and what is actually the benefit maybe, or the what you're holding yourself back from if you're not getting a mentor. I don't think we have time now, but what I would like to offer you all is the 20 to 30 minutes, just a coffee session with me basically, and I will put the link in the chat. And if you want a coffee, if you want to chat, if you're curious about coaching, mentoring, whatnot, then you can find me here. So I put it in the chat, and I will also put my...
That's great, thank you.
There. But now, if there are any questions, any other comments, please bring them on. And I cannot see you all. Here. Now I see you all.
I have a question. Sorry. Go ahead. Also, as I am leading a team, I would be also interested in the other way around. If I detect an imposter syndrome, or also one specific type of it within my team, how can you best offer support without not making it any worse, or what is the best way to face or support others?
So the things that are coming up for me right now is, if you can, and if you have maybe an internal or external coach that can help you in that situation, that would be the easiest probably. Otherwise, having a conversation that is not directed in, hey, I know you have imposter syndrome, right? Because that's going to be even worse. But maybe approaching this person. So a couple of things that helped me in this case is when my boss was aware of how I react to things, and would use themselves the coaching principles of rather approaching the situation as curiosity, and rather asking me questions, and not those probing questions, why did you do that, but more really coming from the curiosity, trying to understand that person, and then helping them build their own approaches that will help them. Also helping them see the achievements that they're making, maybe even doing a fun challenge with them, which might not be super fun for them, but saying something like, how about writing a diary, or in our company we use something called 15-5. It's like when someone, so it's a tool that through which you can also give high fives to people, and then this is actually published in front of the whole company. So I would suggest either proper coaching, or you coming there with the curiosity and the conversation, maybe in a very non-threatening session, maybe just a coffee session, right? Or then doing something like the approaches that we talked before, either diarying or having One thing that we also did was, so one thing that we did, or I did in my own team, is an exercise called mirror. And the point, so the core of this exercise is for you to create a mirror. So we did it actually in the mirror board. We did artboards for each of us, and we asked the others how they see us. And they would put mostly so we would say, what are some of the qualities that you appreciate in me bringing to the team, for example. So you try to focus on something good, and you would really bring a lot of feedback. So how is that?
Thank you.
How does that sound for you? Does it talk to the example that you have in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, of course, pointing the finger probably would be worst for this situation. But yeah, I was just like, because I think communication is so important in this case. What is the best way? And we also have, like, for example, as you mentioned, we also have like a praises Slack channel where everyone can praise others, for example. We're using this a lot. But yeah, just like on a personal level, I was thinking about how to best address this thing with not making it even bigger, which can be probably in most cases also the case.
Yeah, and like I think it's going to be crucial in these conversations to be really mindful of language, like really how you approach, maybe using the nonviolent communication approach, really pointing, this is how I feel, this is how I see the situation. So it's not you did this, but or maybe rather say the behavior I observed was this, or I think it's I forgot the name. Where is the book? I have so many books and I always look for the right one. I'm not going to remember now. What is the Brene Brown? So she said a really nice line that I always have in my mind. It goes something like, the story that I tell myself is, and you can basically use that sentence to say, this is how I understood the situation. This is the story that I'm saying in my head. So if it's a bit of a difficult conversation, then I find this one helpful.
I also have another question. So I also has been team lead myself, or myself having a boss, of course, so different in the two situations. What I have noticed is that sometimes some managers, they are not really praising when something good was done, not congratulating the person. They would never say that when something good was done, like congratulations or something like this, but they would only say critics, never on the positive way. And do you think that if the person recognizes that she's in such an environment, because of course it can also, I would say, doesn't help if you have the imposter syndrome, right? So do you think that in this case, like having an open conversation with your manager about it would be like the best way, the best solution to solve this? Because I mean, of course, for me, for example, if I would have a manager, I know that there are some people like that, right? Who never say, wow, you did something great. Because like from the 5 different profiles you have identified, I'm more the superwoman. That means I would always like to, work more, and always do more. And I think if I would have a manager like that, it would definitely not help me. So yeah, and same on the other way around. If my team member, I always try to say that if they did something great, and so exactly, like I think this is a good solution, right? At least to talk about it. Yeah.
Radical honesty, it doesn't always work. It really depends on I would say it depends on the boss. This is a little bit managing up. You need to understand who your boss is and where they come from. But the one thing that I've learned quite some time ago, and it was a friend of mine that said to me, and she was a lead at that point, and I don't know, I think I was afraid of doing a presentation or something, and she came to me and she was like, you know what? Our CEO also, now be aware, also pees and poops. And I was like, what? And she was like, these people are just like us. They are human. they have basic needs. They just, you know, sometimes act as they do. So their behavior, again, is not who they really are. So just see them as people. And approaching someone in this way, as long as they're open to it, I think it's the best, because then you can have open communication and you can say, look, this is how I'm feeling. And if you recognize your successes, then, and you know that this is going to help you, then by all means, yeah, if the boss is open to a conversation around this, then absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I've noticed sometimes, I've had experience in previous agencies where, as you said, most of the feedback was only when something negative happened. Mm-hmm. And what usually helped is when I proactively started not talking to someone, please give positive feedback, but I started giving positive feedback everyone, and people start picking up and they started following trends. It doesn't always help, but I mean, sometimes it does.
Yeah, be the role model. I had another colleague, and she was an American. It was so incredible to see how different the culture there is to our European, sort of this German culture, where we were all kind of in our own bubbles and we wouldn't really praise each other much. It was more cordial in a way. And then when she came, like, she would praise openly, and she was this warm person. And I think the whole room warmed up just because she started doing this. So yeah, being proactive also very much helps. And be aware, like, some of these bosses are not even aware that they're not doing this. They might even feel like you don't need it, because maybe they value high performance, and maybe they, you know, it's this growth mentality. Let's be better, let's be better. So maybe they also just don't know that you need that. Good. Any other questions? Anything else that is coming up? Good. Otherwise, like I said, this is very, very personal topic. And I was thinking of what to share. There is so much that I could still share. This is just the beginning, in a way. But it should give you enough to start thinking, to start searching more for yourself, to start thinking, what are these strategies of survival that help me? And at the same time, if you do want to go deeper into the conversation, by all means, find me on LinkedIn, send me an email, or book a coffee session with me and we can talk more.
Thank you very much, Pia. And so, as we said, we are gonna post the recording on our YouTube channel, of course, not including the breakout session. And also, well, about our SheSays event, we are going to do a little summer break now, because I think everyone is tired of Zoom and the weather is getting better. So probably our next event is going to happen in September, just so that everyone knows. Yes. And thank you very much, Pia, again. And as she said, feel free to contact her. I'm sure she will be very happy about it. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Lovely